News 9, always on point, no noise.
How the Dragon is leveraging US tariff pressure to rewrite World Trade Order. Beijing aims global dominance.
That was a very strong attack.
Only sharp, powerful insights that matter to you. Stories that are unmissable.
No more tolerance to unruly passengers on Indian flights.
In your interest.
This edition of In Your Interest.
Every time. Fastest alerts, hard facts, nuanced 360-degree analysis. India's largest news network. From the Northeast to the far South, we reach every corner. From breaking stories to in-depth reporting. When the world changes, News 9 leads from the front. News 9, on top, always.
This is India's #1 news network, and you're watching News 9, English news as it should be.
Hello and a very warm welcome. Thanks for tuning in to your favorite news destination. You're watching In Your Interest with me, Kabir Naqvi. And on the first segment on IYI, wars all across us. And the future wars, that's going to be our focus. It's not going to be fought with just tanks and aerial superiority. We're talking about cyber, rocket departments. We're talking about data as part of military offensive. So over the course of the next 25 minutes, let's try and decode the big military reset, Vision 2047, India's long-term defense blueprint. For decades, the strength of a military was measured by the sheer number of boots on the ground and the size of its fighter jet fleet. But the nature of warfare is changing quick and fast, and India is officially pivoting to meet that very future. Take a look at this. The government has unveiled Defense Vision 2047, a roadmap designed to transform the Indian Armed Forces into a modern, technology-driven powerhouse over the next 2 decades. This isn't just about buying new hardware. It's about a fundamental and a structural shift. The plan introduces 4 brand new tri-service bodies: a dedicated drone force for unmanned warfare, a data force to master artificial intelligence and cyber operations, and a geospatial agency for real-time battlefield intelligence, and a cognitive warfare action force. That's right. And to lead this high-tech charge, the military is looking beyond its own ranks, planning lateral entry for private sector specialists in engineering, in technology, and the roadmap is divided into 3 clear phases as well. By 2030, we will see major structural reforms. By 2040, these new wings will be fully integrated, leading to a total military transformation by the year 2047, the big military reset. Now, the big questions everyone is asking after the recent West Asia conflict: how does India compare with the weapons being used in that region? And what can we learn from Iran's approach? In air defense, India operates the S-400 system, which can engage targets up to 400 kilometers away. This gives wider coverage than Israel's David Sling medium-range interceptor. In terms of fighter jets, India's Rafale is an advanced 4.5 generation aircraft, but the 5th American F-35 remains ahead in terms of stealth technology. For striking hardened targets, the US uses the GBU-28 bunker buster bombs, whilst India relies on the Spice 2000 precision glide bomb. The American weapon has deeper penetration. And when you talk about the sea power, the US Nimitz-class nuclear carrier can operate nearly 90 aircraft compared to India's Vikramaditya, which handles around 30. In terms of cruise missiles, the American Tomahawk has a proven range of 2,500 kilometers and long combat record, whilst India's Nirbhay is still catching up in terms of maturity. However, in the drone category, India is strong. Our loitering munitions and swarm-capable systems are competitive and they continue to improve. But at the same time, one has to look at Iran's situation in the same region. Years of sanctions since 1979 have left its air force stuck with 1970s era fighter jets. So Iran built something different. It now has between 2,500 to 3,000 missiles, thousands of drones, underground missile cities, and a strategy of firing large salvos to overwhelm these enemy defenses. This approach, it reduces the risks to pilots and gives Iran strike reach up to 2,000 kilometers without needing modern fighter jets. India faces its own challenges. The Indian Air Force has only 30 to 32 squadrons against the authorized and sanctioned 42. The Rafale fleet is limited to 36 fighter jets, and Tejas production is still slow. That is why India is also pushing hard on its rocket force and the drone units. That's where they come into play. The message from the Vision 2047 docket is clear. India does not want to choose between jets and missiles. It wants to build both at the same time and fight in every domain. We've got an esteemed set of panelists with us on the first segment. And the big question that we are asking, can India offset its fighter jet gap with drones and rockets? To what extent should India adopt the asymmetric warfare tactics that we are seeing in West Asia? Is private sector participation and the lateral entry that's been mentioned in the docket enough to speed up the indigenization of critical technologies? And a lot more. With us on the broadcast, Major General Ashwini Sivach, Defence and Strategic Expert. Many thanks, General, for taking out the time. Air Commodore Ashminder Singh Bahal, Defence and Geopolitical Expert, with us on the broadcast. Many thanks. And Rear Admiral Girish Kumar Garg, Defence and Geopolitical Expert, also with us on the broadcast. Many thanks, Admiral. General, let me get the snowball rolling here. We've got somebody from the land warfare perspective, somebody from the Navy, somebody from the Air Force. Vision 2047, General Sivach, talks about transforming India's military. It's a big military reset into a multi-domain force. 4 new domains, 3 different phases. And from a land warfare perspective, how important are these new terminologies in modern day warfare? Drones, data networks, cyber capabilities for the future of battlefield. How important and significant is the timing of this docket as well, General?
Yeah, Kabir, the timing is very important. And remember, as on today, number of wars are taking place in the world. The Russia-Ukraine war has been now there for more than 4 years. And now this US and Israel attacking on Iran has opened a new era. And before that, there was been a war between India and Pakistan for 4 days. So a lot of lessons have been learned. But one thing one should understand, you can't fight a future war on the experience of your past war. You have to now proceed because technology keeps on changing.
Yeah.
And no two scenarios are same. Now, if I take it, the lesson which we have learned, even on Israel and America war with Iran, this is a non-contact war. There are no ground forces which have been used here. But we must not learn only those lessons which looks very nice that the technology will only take on. There are also boots on ground which makes a difference ultimately. However, if you see Russia-Ukraine war, the ground troops have been used and how effective they were, that also has to be factored in. But the modern technology has to be the main key now. And that's why what mission or 2047 says is you have to have a drone force which will encompass drones as well as loitering ammunition data force. This is the one which will be the cutting edge because you need a critical
could
technology.
These be for battlefield intelligence and targeting, General? The drone force and the data force that you're talking about?
Yeah, very correct. I am very rightly said, Kabir. And then you have this defense geospatial agency and then cognitive warfare action force. What is the basically meat of it is that preparing yourself for modern warfare, wherein you'll find a warfare will be completely changed than what we are anticipating today, where technology will play a major role. What this mission 2047 is telling, that these technology are not going to be given to you by anyone else. You have to evolve this technology within. Atam Nirbhar Bharat is the crunch point. That is where the importance comes. The second thing is rocket force. What we have seen is that will. And another which very important for us is we have to see our adversary. Our adversary is Pakistan and China. Where do they stand? What are they preparing, and how do we beat them in there? So if you see China is very good in cyber warfare, space warfare, hybrid warfare, and asymmetric warfare. We have to counter that. And if you see Pakistan, what they have done, they have already made a drone force, they have made a rocket force. So you have to go fast and you have to do.
Yeah.
So these three phases which we have divided are up to 24/7, that we have to now modernize and become a very competent defense forces, that up to 2030 it will be era of a transition, and then from 30 to 40 will be era of a consolidation, and 40 to 47 era of excellence. Now all these milestones and on the roadmap are very, very important, but all said and done, I will only say three things. One is a synergy between all the three forces. Theaterization is the key word which we have to go in. Second thing is Atam Nirbhar Bharat. You have to make technology, spend more money on R&D, involve your private partners.
Fair enough.
And the third thing is the whole nation approach. The defense forces cannot fight a war alone. You have to have industrial, economic output, and also political and diplomatic might to fight a war, which has been shown. I think all three.
I think, General, that's where the lateral entry and the private sector will come and play its part. But we're going to hold our horses on that particular front. Let me go across the board once, with Air Commodore Ashminder Singh Bahal also. Commodore, you're gleaming from year to year. What's so special about that? One debate globally is the cost equation that we've been talking about vis-a-vis the West Asian war. You've been talking to us on an everyday basis. A cheap drone versus an expensive fighter jet like the Rafale. This new docket, this new vision, what does it tell us about how the Indian Air Force is now going to balance this new reality?
Very nice of you to invite me with such eminent panelists. Why I'm smiling is because, there is a very famous saying by a Roman writer Seneca: if a man does not know what port he's steering, no wind is favorable. My friend in the Navy will stand by me with this statement. Means what you need is a vision and a goal, which is actually a political goal. From that originates your military goals and military strategies. And that is the importance, that we aim to transform our armed forces into an integrated, modern, agile, tech-savvy, and a very precise armed forces, which will come into being and which will translate and make it into a kind of integrated capability development program. See, what is happening is currently the army buys its own drones, the Air Force buys it. First time we are buying Reaper drones for all the three services. You will not believe, for the helicopter also, army is having, and sometimes a different place where they are serviced, and Air Force. Now, what we need today is an integrated armed forces. And what we need today is to understand that each and every it is Army, Navy, or the Air Force, is part of a larger whole, which is aimed to achieve the national goals. And if you look at the strategy which the Chinese have come out on 5th March in the National People's Congress, they have clearly highlighted two aspects: artificial intelligence and humanoid robotics, and the second is quantum computing. You look at the National Defense Strategy, which came out from the US in January 2026, talking of homeland defense, and then you come out with the various defense white papers of the Chinese, right from 2010, 2015, 2019, and 2025, and you're very clear what is their threat perception and how you should cater for it. And our own national military strategy is going to come out this year in December 2026 based on this vision. But what I want to highlight to you is the general has covered what is given in the white paper. I don't want to repeat those things,
Yeah,
but I
yeah,
want
yeah.
to tell you, when we talk of, whether the tanks are still relevant today, in the modern warfare, especially when you're not even going to cross the border, does India need 4,000 plus tanks? Or does India need the fighter squadrons, or do we need the drones? Let me tell you, everything has a role to play and is part of a huge whole which makes you achieve the national security strategies or concerns. Now, just to give you an example, we were talking of F-35. What you require today in a fighter aircraft is the ability to have stealth and then get into the contested airspace and provide air dominance, which the drones cannot do, which the missiles cannot do, which only a fighter aircraft can do. The best example for this is the Iran war that is taking place. The Iran is exploiting the vulnerabilities of the enemy by using those asymmetric weapons such as drones, such as missiles, and also underwater drones, as well as boat drones. But what I want to highlight here is very important. This is only a defensive capability, even when it is used in offense. Iran can never win against America and Israel together. But what they are doing is they're prolonging the war, increasing the political, military, and
It's becoming a
economic
war of
cost.
attrition. It's like roping
Exactly.
the dope.
So,
You're
last
up
sentence.
against a very heavy boxer. You're trying to weigh out your
Yeah.
opponent as long as you can.
Last sentence I want
Yeah,
to say
yeah.
in this is that they have realized that though cyber warfare has a role to play, geospatial intelligence has a role to play, everything has a role to play, but they have identified one very important aspect, and that is cognitive warfare, which has been left off. Now look at the narrative which the Pakistanis made after we won the Op Sindoor. Now that is the cognitive warfare hitting at the minds and logic
Yeah,
of
the
the enemy.
disinformation and the
where
misinformation
Trump has
campaigns.
failed. Where Trump has failed because he has applied military power against vulnerabilities, but not against his two major aims, which were regime change, and the second was getting 440 kgs of enriched uranium.
I get what you're, where you're coming from, Commodore, because it seems like the rhetoric and the ground realities don't really match in the Iran, and the US-Israel war. You're absolutely right. Rear Admiral Garg, let me come to you next. In modern warfare, and we already know the use of artificial intelligence when you're talking about maritime surveillance. And with the Strait of Hormuz in big focus, this big maritime game of hide and seek with the oil tankers changing their flags at the at the last minute. Then you've got all these logistical sanctions that the Iran tankers are evading itself. The use of technology and artificial intelligence and the growth of the same in the Navy has been impeccable. So when you're looking at this docket, your opening submissions, Rear Admiral, where do you think India has been able to close the gaps? And where do you think the gaps are still visible and we need to work on them?
I think, firstly, getting this vision document out is itself a very welcome step.
Yeah.
Because until unless we think about our future, how will we act upon it? So the fact that we are thinking about ourselves, what should look like till 2047 itself is a welcome first step, firstly. And secondly, the timing of it. The world is going through a turmoil. We have seen in the last couple of years, geostrategically, politically, the world is in a turmoil. And, this is the right time to see what's happening around us and see where do we stand, at least militarily, in this scenario, and where the future is heading. And are we prepared to see where the future is going, where we are, whether we are prepared to go in that direction. So I think this Vision 2047 addresses many of these issues. Now, coming to the maritime domain, I would say that, there are three things that I am particularly happy to see in this document. First is this drone agency, drone body. This is a lesson learned from the Ukraine-Russia war, and Ukraine has created a drone command, or they call it unmanned warfare command, which looks at complete unmanned warfare in all domains: air, land, marine, underwater, completely integrating all domains of unmanned warfare, and that has proved very, very effective. I mean, they look at the complete drone procurement, planning, manufacturing, surveillance, deployment, command centers, the entire from I would say from womb to tomb concept of drone warfare.
Yeah.
It's integrated. So, and that has proved very, very successful. We have seen in Ukraine war. So I think that's an important lesson that we have learned very quickly. And now this document talks about a drone agency or a drone command, which is very, very welcome.
But what
Second
about, Admiral, what about integrating space, cyber, and of course the top-notch naval intelligence systems? Just a couple of days back, you had the IRS Dana and the attack that happened just, in the international waters, very close to our boundary, about 17 nautical miles off of South Sri Lanka. I mean, that was a grave cause of concern. Everybody started talking whether the war is going to finally come to our doorstep and what kind of role the Coast Guard and the Navy can then play. So with this docket, with all points that you're making, all pertinent points, the integration of space, cyber, and the already top-notch naval intelligence systems.
Correct. In today's world, even the space technology, if I don't mix the space with the cyber, but the space as a standalone, space, there's a lot of work already happening in space with AI and machine learning, domain mixed into it. And it's already giving wonderful results. Now we incorporate cyber and naval intelligence into it. It becomes a very, very lethal and a lethal weapon in our arsenal. And I would say it's a force multiplier that you have a space, cyber, and intelligence intermixed with AI, artificial intelligence. I think that's the right direction that this document has taken, and it will be a force in itself to reckon with for the times to come for the world over our adversities.
Music to my ears, music to all the viewers' ears as well. General Sivach, is the Indian Army adapting quickly enough as well? 3 phases, 4 new domains. Really good to read up about all of this on paper, but vision documents are supposed to be ambitious pieces of paper, but then again, implementation is key, and synergy is something that you spoke about in your opening submissions. From your experience, what will determine whether Vision 2047 actually succeeds on the ground, and are you pinning your hopes on this vision document?
Very correct. See, Kabir, one thing one has to understand that this vision is giving you basically a direction. And this direction has to be now literally followed. You may have mid-term correction also may be doing because the lesson which you learn over a period of time. But one thing one must understand, all the 3 forces will play a major role. Now, as far as the army is concerned, what you need is that since your 2 adversaries are there, China and Pakistan, and China, the terrain is more of a mountainous starting from Ladakh to Arunachal Pradesh. So you have to have a technology wherein it fits into that area. You have to have a light tank, you have got a medium guns, your range has to be more, they have to be made in India itself. You have to make sure that infantryman is very equipped, modern, technologically savvy. Drones are there, anti-drone strategy also comes on, air defense system is at par, it is well coordinated with Army, Air Force and Navy. So all these things will play a major role as far as the Army fighting a war on a line of actual control. And when it comes to line of control, the armor mechanized forces will play a major role along with the drones, with counter drone strategy, because the enemy is also going to utilize all that thing, but they have learned it. But remember that so far, even in Operation Sindoor, that the forces have not crossed the land. And the moment you cross the land, the lessons are very, very different. 65, 71, war will not be repeated. You will be fighting a very different war, and a critical technology will make a difference. So you start from infantry, a modernization of infantry has to take place, wherein you have a loitering ammunition drones fitted in infantry unit. Then you talk about the artillery. Artillery is the one which you have got your own, making it 155M, 88 GS, Dhanush. That which has a range, that is, you can have, say, shoot and scoot. Like we have taken M777 from US, we have taken K9 Vajra from South Korea, but they are built now here in India itself. Third thing which you also tanks. Now the point is the olden time of tanks technology and also strategy will not work. It will be different. Drones are become a very potent weapon against mechanized forces. You have to have anti-drone strategy. So this have to be the air defense system has to be multi-layered.
So does the docket talk about how we're changing our strategy on the defensive front as well, General?
Yes, the transition period which we are talking about, when see this vision 4247 talks about a broader guidelines. But when you will go to nitty gritty and all, you have to take all these things
Okay.
in
Okay.
consideration. And no, I will just give you example. I commanded a unit somewhere in 96 to 99. When I visited my unit now very recently, I found it is a much more change, modern, technological savvy with the most modern weapon equipment they are there. So the whole change has to take place, and you have to now equip your soldiers with the latest technology, and now
You're absolutely right,
coordination,
General. Yeah, I'll tell you
synergy
what, I'll tell you what.
between
The closest
armies.
I've come to a battlefield was on my Xbox and the gaming console, where we used to play Call of Duty back in the day. And, the soldier would instantly pull out a drone from his backpack and then, on a little screen, throw that drone up in the air. The drone does a little attack. I'm talking about 15 years back in the day. And now we're seeing that as a clear-cut reality on this front. Air Commodore, the entire Vision 2047, it proposes that air and missile defense expansion under Project Sudarshan Chakra. That's again great to read. It could become India's equivalent of the integrated shield, just like the David Sling and the Patriot missile system that we've been seeing, and it's worked real well in Operation Sindoor as well. But we need to touch upon a little bit on the challenges that we're facing as well. The squadron strength of the fighter jets, the delay with our AMCAs. And it's still a long way before we finally see the AMCA up in the air. So India still faces challenges, especially in developing the indigenous jet engines. Safran's deal is there. We're doing a parallel study with Rolls-Royce, I think. But how critical is engine technology for this long-term air ambition that the entire docket is talking about?
The three things that you covered, you want me to answer. First is integrated aerospace defense. We have to move from integrated defense, air defense, to integrated aerospace defense, which starts with Prithvi air defense as well as advanced air defense. And then comes in those like S-400 and Barak and many other weapon systems on ground, and ending at counter US system, that is counter UAV systems. So this integrated aerospace defense has to work with the integrated air command and control system, linking with the space, linking with the civil, and simultaneously also linking with the Army's Akash Tir at across the levels and the Navy's maritime domain awareness. It has to come and get integrated with that. That is one aspect. Second thing you mentioned about fighter aircraft. The fighter aircraft are currently 29 squadrons, and we have only 2 squadrons of LCA Mark 1. The Mark 1A is likely to come up in the next few months, 5 of them, and then it will start building up, and in another 2 to 3 years, it will go up to about 24 aircraft per year. But that is going to take time, and by the time the entire 180 aircraft come up, this aircraft will be more or less coming to half its obsolescence. So what we need today is co-development, and that is exactly, we may go for Rafale 4.5 generation, but simultaneously we need to co-develop a 5th generation fighter aircraft such as the Su-57, so that we get those technologies, integrate them with AMCA and work AMCA towards 6th generation. Because if the AMCA comes up in 2035, as we are planning right now, by then the 5th generation is getting outdated, and you've already got 6th generation.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right, Commodore.
Yeah. Last thing I want to say is that what we need actually is an integrated national security headquarters. And that should come close to Delhi underground structure, where the Army, Navy, Air Force, NSA, everyone who's involved, ISRO, every person, DSA's elements.
The DRDO, I mean, you're absolutely right. It has to come together. And I can imagine it. And this underground facility, it's going to look so cool. I mean, that's the right adjective that I'd want to use here.
Yeah, they'll have a complete structure where they have a mission board where you can see every aircraft, every ship, every tank, wherever, not every tank, but brigades and...
All right. All right. Okay. Final word to Rear Admiral Garg on the broadcast. Admiral, in modern warfare, naval conflicts are increasingly shaped by these long-range missiles, the drones, the satellites. How is the Indian Navy preparing for that? And of course, the vision talks about strengthening underwater domain and seabed monitoring. Is this essentially linked towards, making sure that our energy routes, the subsea cables, we get better security over those as well? Final 1 minute, sir.
Yeah, I wanted to touch upon these two important aspects which you mentioned about underwater domain awareness and seabed domain awareness. They're two different things. Underwater domain awareness is just below the water, up to the, you can say up to the mid sea level, or, to 300, 400 meters below the sea, where the
Okay.
submarine stuck. But when you talk about seabed domain awareness, we are talking about the seabed of the ocean, which
Yep.
may be 3,000 meters, 4,000 meters, 10,000 meters below the Pacific Ocean. The seabed is very deep. So we are talking about technology where we are aware of the domain of the seabed. Because why seabed? Because today very, very critical minerals are there in the seabed. Seabed
You're
mining
absolutely right,
is
sir.
going to be the future.
Yeah.
I presume that future conflicts will be over seabed resources. The kind of critical minerals the world is looking at the crisis. Many of these critical minerals are lying on the seabed, and the world will soon start fighting over the resources. So it's very, very critical for us to know what's happening on the seabed, who's there, who's doing what on the seabed domain, and the seabed domain awareness will be a very critical instrument in India's future arsenal, and I'm happy
All
that this
right.
Vision 2047 talks about it. You
Okay.
mentioned about long-range missiles and drones.
Yeah.
Of course, naval warfare is all about long-range warfare, and Indian Navy has fully integrated the BrahMos missile. It's a supersonic missile. We have seen its capability on the land warfare of Sindoor. It is, in fact, Navy was the first one to integrate BrahMos,
We've
and
seen
later on,
firsthand in Operation Sindoor all the
yes.
surveillance work that the Navy did. I mean, hats off to all the tri-services. The summary that I've understood with Air Commodore and with Rear Admiral Garg is that the vision document is, of course, a welcome step. It's still early doors, but then with the ever-changing grammar of modern warfare, it's great to see